Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you've been sewing for a while, or if you're just about to buy your very first machine, you already know this truth. Not every sewing machine on the market deserves a spot in your sewing room. And I'm not just talking about meh, it's not my favorite. I'm talking about machines that jam every 10 stitches. Machines with zero customer support, machines with plastic gears that strip out before you finish your first quilt, and in some cases, machines that reviewers have literally called dangerous. So today we're doing something a little different. Instead of telling you what to buy, I'm going to tell you exactly what to avoid. I spent hours digging through owner reviews, repair shop reports, and industry sources, Sewing World Magazine, Sew News, Reddit's r/sewing community, product review databases, and conversations with actual sewing machine technicians to put together this list of 8 brands and categories that show up again and again as red flags. Now, before we dive in, let me say this clearly. Sewing machines are not one size fits all, and even a good brand can have a bad model, and a bad brand might still be fine for a 5-minute repair job. But if you're investing real money, even just $50 or $100, you deserve to know which names tend to cause the most headaches for American sewists. Stick around till the end, because I'll also tell you what to look for instead, so you actually walk away from this video knowing how to protect your wallet. Let's get into it. Why brand actually matters. Before we name names, let's talk about why brand reputation is such a big deal in this hobby, because I know some of you are thinking, isn't a sewing machine just a sewing machine? Not even close. A sewing machine is a precision mechanical tool. It has to control thread tension down to fractions of a gram, time a needle and a rotating hook to meet at exactly the right millisecond, and do that thousands of times per minute, for years, without falling apart. That's a lot to ask from a $50 plastic box. When you buy from an established brand, think Singer, Brother, Janome, that's pronounced Janomi by the way, Jucky, Bernina, Baby Lock, Pfaff, or Elna. You're not just buying a machine. You're buying a parts network, a service manual, trained technicians who know how to fix it, and a company that's actually going to exist in 5 years if something breaks. With the brands on today's list, you lose some or all of that. And that's exactly the pattern repair technicians keep flagging. The gap between the best and worst sewing machine brands isn't really about how the machine sews on day 1. It's about whether you're still sewing on it in year 2 or shopping for a replacement after a few weeks. So keep that in mind as we go through this list. Durability, parts availability, and support are just as important as how the first stitch looks. Number 8. Jucky. Let's start with the name that is designed, and I mean designed, to confuse you. Jucky. Say it fast, and it sounds a lot like Jucky, the legitimate Japanese industrial sewing machine company that professional tailors and quilters trust worldwide. But Jucky is not Jucky. It's a separate, budget-tier machine that shows up primarily through Chinese marketplace listings, and it has built a reputation as one of the least reliable machines currently being sold to unsuspecting beginners. The complaints follow a pattern you'll hear again and again in this video: thread breaking mid-seam, skip stitches, and mechanisms that jam up within the first few uses. Industry trackers estimate that somewhere around a fifth to a third of user complaints about this machine specifically mention threading failures and general durability problems. That is a massive failure rate for a product whose entire job is to sew a straight, consistent line. The body parts on a machine like this tend to be lower-grade plastic and metal alloys, which means the lifespan is short even under light home use. We're talking weeks or a few months for some buyers, not years. Here's my advice. If you're shopping online and you see a name that sounds almost like a brand you recognize, stop and triple check the spelling. That 5-letter difference between Jucky and Jucky could be the difference between a machine that lasts a decade and one that's in a landfill by spring. Number 7. Omer. Next up is Omer, another budget name that tends to show up when you search for the cheapest possible sewing machine on big marketplace sites. The problem with Omer isn't necessarily that every single unit is broken out of the box. It's what happens after the sale. This brand has extremely limited market presence, which in plain English means if something goes wrong, good luck finding a manual, a replacement part, or a human being to help you. Repair technicians who've handled these machines describe reliability that falls flat where it counts most, meaning the core mechanics, the parts that actually determine whether your seams come out straight, tend to underperform compared to established brands at a similar price point. And here's the thing that really gets me. You might save $20 or $30 buying a machine like this instead of a Brother or a Singer entry-level model. But the moment the bobbin case cracks or the tension dial stops holding, you're not looking at a $5 part and a YouTube tutorial anymore. You're looking at a paperweight. If a brand doesn't have a real service network here in the United States, that low price tag is not a deal. It's a ticking clock. Number 6, VLF. VOF is another one of those brands that keeps popping up on the void lists compiled by people who actually repair sewing machines for a living. And when I say keeps my repair schedule packed, that's a direct quote from someone who has fixed thousands of machines over their career. What puts VOF in that same bucket as Jucky and Omer is the combination of plastic internal components in places where metal really should be, and a customer support structure that essentially vanishes the second you need it. Established sewing machine brands back their products with responsive teams and real warranties. Budget brands like this one often don't, or the warranty exists on paper, but is nearly impossible to actually use. The technical detail that matters here is metal gears versus plastic gears. On a machine that's built to last, the internal gear train, the parts that transfer power from the motor to the needle, are metal. Sometimes metal and nylon hybrids designed to reduce noise without sacrificing durability. On a machine like this, you're often looking at all-plastic gear assemblies that can strip out or crack under the stress of sewing anything heavier than a light cotton quilting fabric. Try to sew denim, canvas, or multiple layers, and you're asking for trouble. Number 5. Iris Gemma. Now let's talk about Iris Gemma, which lands on this list for a slightly different reason. It's not just about the machine breaking down, it's about wasted materials while you're actively using it. According to detailed brand reviews, Iris Gemma consistently ranks near the bottom in user satisfaction, and one of the most common complaints is thread waste, meaning the machine chews through or tangles thread excessively during regular use, especially under any kind of sustained sewing session. If you've ever sewn on a machine that eats thread like it's a competitive sport, you know how frustrating and expensive that gets over time. There's also a pattern of general disruption during heavy work, meaning the more ambitious your project, the more likely the machine is to act up. For a beginner working on a simple tote bag, that might just be annoying. For anyone trying to make garments, quilts, or home decor items regularly, it makes the machine essentially unusable for its intended purpose. The takeaway here, when you're comparing machines, don't just look at the sticker price. Factor in the cost of wasted thread, wasted fabric from botched seams, and wasted time. A $40 machine that ruins $200 worth of fabric over its lifetime was never actually cheap. Number 4. Unbranded mystery mini sewing machines. Okay, this next category isn't a single company. It's an entire ecosystem of near-identical little plastic sewing machines that flood Amazon and Walmart listings, often under names like Magic Fly, and dozens of nearly indistinguishable clones with different labels slapped on the same base hardware. Now, to be fair, I want to give credit where it's due. Some of these mini machines genuinely work fine for simple tasks like hemming, small repairs, or kids' craft projects, and plenty of buyers are happy with them for that limited use case. But when you actually dig into the owner reviews, some serious patterns show up that go beyond. It's just a cheap starter machine. Multiple reviewers have reported the bobbin system tangling constantly, the top thread snapping repeatedly, and stitches bunching up unevenly even after correct threading. Some owners describe replacing a defective unit only to receive a second one with a completely different set of problems. And in at least one documented case, a reviewer described a serious safety concern. The machine reportedly started sewing on its own while it was plugged in but supposedly turned off, which is exactly the kind of thing that should never happen with an electrical device that has a moving needle. If you're buying one of these little machines for a child's craft box or for quick emergency repairs on the road, that might be an acceptable risk for you. But please, do not buy one of these thinking it will replace a real sewing machine for garment construction, quilting, or anything you plan to do regularly. And always keep an eye on it while it's plugged in. Number 3. No-name, dollar store style, portable machines. Sticking with the budget mini machine theme for a second, because it deserves its own call-out. there's a whole tier of ultra-cheap portable machines, often priced under $50, that show up on deal sites and marketplace flash sales with generic branding you've never heard of and will probably never hear of again. One reviewer summed this category up about as bluntly as it gets, describing these as, and I'm paraphrasing here to keep it clean for the channel, cheap imported junk that simply isn't built for real work. The consistent advice from people who've actually tried these and returned them is simple: spend a little more money for an established, reliable brand. The core issue with this entire category is the business model. These companies aren't investing in engineering, quality control, or long-term customer relationships. They're selling a novelty item at the lowest possible price point, and profit margins depend on you not needing customer service, replacement parts, or a working machine after 90 days. If a sewing machine is priced like a toy, budget for it to perform like one. Number 2. Discontinued house brands with no parts ecosystem. This one's a little different, and I think it's honestly one of the most important warnings on this whole list, especially if you're shopping secondhand at estate sales, thrift stores, or on Facebook Marketplace. The classic cautionary tale here is Kenmore. For decades, Kenmore sewing machines, sold exclusively through Sears, had a reputation for being built like tanks: strong motors, dependable stitching, the kind of machine your grandmother used for 30 years without a single service call. And genuinely, a lot of vintage Kenmore machines out there are excellent pieces of engineering. But here's the catch: Sears has completely exited the Kenmore branded sewing machine business. There are no new Kenmore machines being manufactured, and while some parts are still floating around, particularly for the models that were actually built by Janome under contract, plenty of owners report hunting for months for a single discontinued part, only to be told by both Sears and Kenmore representatives that the part simply isn't made anymore. The lesson generalizes way beyond just Kenmore, and it's worth remembering any time you're brand shopping. When a big retailer's house brand sewing line gets discontinued, or when a manufacturer goes through bankruptcy or a corporate restructuring, that machine you bought can turn into an orphan overnight. No new parts, no updated manuals, no factory-trained technicians. If you're buying vintage or secondhand, that's sometimes an acceptable trade-off for a great mechanical machine at a bargain price. Just go in with your eyes open and check parts availability before you fall in love with a deal. Number 1. Budget tier machines from companies cutting corners on manufacturing. And for the final spot on today's list, I want to zoom out and talk about a broader pattern that's honestly more important than any single brand name: budget lines from companies that have shifted production away from quality control in the name of hitting a lower price point. This happens across the industry, even with names that used to mean something. Sewing machine manufacturing has consolidated heavily over the past few decades. Several once independent, iconic brands are now owned by the same parent corporations, with research and development, marketing, and even factory floors shared across brands that used to compete with each other. Production for a lot of budget and mid-range machines has shifted to contract manufacturers across different countries, and depending on which factory a specific model comes out of, quality can vary significantly, even under a trusted name. What that means for you as a shopper: don't just trust a logo. Trust the specific model, backed up by specific, recent reviews. A machine that got glowing reviews 5 years ago might be manufactured completely differently today. Before you buy anything, even from a brand you recognize, search the exact model number along with the word reviews. Check what actual owners in the U.S. are saying in the last 6 to 12 months, and pay close attention to any recurring complaints about tension problems, bobbin jams, or parts failing early. The single biggest mistake I see beginner sewists make isn't picking a bad brand. It's picking a random model without checking whether that specific machine, in its current production run, is actually holding up for real people. What to look for instead. Alright, so now that we've covered what to avoid, let's talk quickly about how to actually make a smart purchase, because I don't want you leaving this video just scared of every option out there. For a true beginner, expect to spend somewhere between $200 and $350 for a solid entry-level computerized machine with an automatic needle threader and a drop-in top-loading bobbin. Going under $150 for a brand new machine carries real durability risk, no matter whose name is on it. Look for a top-loading, drop-in bobbin system if you're new to sewing. It sits visibly under a clear cover, which makes it dramatically easier to spot and fix jams compared to a front-loading bobbin case. Front-load systems can produce cleaner tension once you're more experienced, but they take longer to learn and are harder to diagnose when something's wrong. When you're comparing brands, prioritize companies with an actual U.S. service network and dealers. Names like Singer, Brother, Janome, Jucky, Bernina, Babylock, Pfaff, and Elna all have that infrastructure here in America. And before you check out, spend 15 minutes reading recent owner reviews specifically about tension reliability and bobbin jam frequency. If those two things are solid on a given model, the exact stitch count and brand prestige matter a lot less than the product listing wants you to believe. One more tip: budget separately for a professional service and cleaning appointment sometime in the machine's first year, even if nothing's wrong yet. It's the sewing machine equivalent of an oil change, and it will meaningfully extend the life of whatever you buy. So there you have it, 8 brands and categories that repair techs, owner reviews, and the broader sewing community consistently flag as red flags for American sewists in 2026. Remember, this isn't about brand snobbery. It's about protecting your time, your money, and honestly, your enthusiasm for this hobby, because nothing kills a beginner's excitement faster than a machine that won't cooperate. If this video helped you avoid a bad purchase, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more sewists who need this exact information before they check out on Amazon. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because next week I'm breaking down my top 5 sewing machines that are actually worth your money at every single budget level, from your very first $50 starter machine all the way up to a professional workhorse. Drop a comment down below and tell me, have you ever bought a sewing machine that turned out to be a total disaster? I want to hear your horror stories, and hey, it might just save someone else from making the same mistake. Thanks so much for watching, keep those seams straight, and I'll see you in the next one.